Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Wanda Curley. I am your authority on everything that's project, program, and portfolio management. Today's webinar is brought to you by PM Powered, a consulting company that can help you with your project, program, and portfolio needs. Today we're going to be talking about project portfolio management, the baby steps. I'm honored to be here, and I'm glad that you are all here as well. And I hope this is going to be an interactive webinar to the point that you ask questions, and I'll address all those questions at the end. The webinar itself will be about 30 minutes. So again, please ask your questions and I will answer them at the end. Just a little story about how I started in project portfolio management. I was at NCR in the mid-90s, and an opportunity arose to lead the project management area for one of the business units at NCR. Unbeknownst to me at the time, it was really project portfolio management. Project portfolio management didn't even exist in the minds of people at that time. It was being done, but it wasn't named. And that's what I was doing. I was linking projects and programs to strategy and telling the executive leadership which projects and programs in a certain area were making money, which industries were not making money. And based on that information, the executive leadership had better information to make decision-making to understand where they should head in the future in the strategy. So we were linking projects and programs to strategy, and if they didn't link, we killed them. So since then, I have been very interested in this area and got involved with the Project Management Institute, who I'm aligned with, on project portfolio management. And I also help corporations and nonprofits with their project portfolio management. So without further ado, let's start the webinar here. I'll be going over about 5 different areas. So first of all, we need to talk about what is project portfolio management, so we all start on the same level here. Second, how does it differ from program management? Because people might think, well, that's got strategy, so how does it differ? How does it differ from project management? Are you doing it and don't realize it? I'm going to venture to guess that some of you are doing some parts of portfolio management. If you're not a portfolio manager already, then of course you're doing it all. And don't understand the strategy of your corporation, then maybe you need to write a business case. That's the best way to learn how to learn about an area, is to write a business case on it for executive leadership. So what is project portfolio management, or as some people call it, PPM? It deals with strategy. You're trying to link the strategic objectives to the project and programs, because you don't want to do projects and programs that don't drive to the strategic objectives of the corporation or the business unit. If you're not linking them, then why are you doing them? There must be another reason. Now, it might be legal or regulatory, but that should be linked into the strategy as well. So you're driving value of the projects and programs. You're making sure that projects and programs that are brought in are there for the strategic objective. If they're not, then you need to think about doing something different and understanding why you're doing those projects, and recommend that they be killed to the steering committee. So you're driving value by decreasing the cost and decreasing the risk. So you have this portfolio and you want to get all these projects and programs done, but some of them are going to be a higher risk or higher cost, and others are going to be maybe lower cost but high risk. So you have to make sure that your portfolio meets the needs of the corporation. In other words, if you are in an adverse, in a risk-averse organization, then you don't want to have a very risky portfolio. On the other hand, you don't want to also have the cost that it's insurmountable if something goes wrong with one of the projects. You're also resourcing effectively. I can't emphasize this enough. That's one of the golden things I think about project portfolio management. Now, I don't mean resourcing at the tactical level. You're not putting Jane on XYZ project and Joe on ABC project. You are giving a quantitative amount of resources. So you might have 100 project managers, 100 program managers, 10 DBAs, 50 customer agents. So while they don't belong to you and report to you, you know what's allowed in the portfolio. So then you can take all of these projects and programs and make sure before that they're blessed to go ahead and get started, that they are resourced effectively. So in other words, they're resourced at 100% of what's expected at the right times. It doesn't mean that they get all of their resources maybe on day one, but it's looked at throughout the life of the portfolio that when they need the resources are there. And that's one of the things that a portfolio manager is constantly evaluating. When projects get delayed or they accelerate, that changes the environment for resourcing effectively. So that's what the portfolio manager is also doing besides driving the value of the portfolio. So how does it differ from programs? Well, programs are about strategy, and some people would say, well, if the program's big enough, it's really a portfolio. That's not entirely true because you're only looking at the projects for that program. You're not looking at projects for the entire portfolio or the corporation. And it aligns to normally one strategic objective. However, your program may align to more. And if you think it does, then you need to get with the portfolio manager and show them how it aligns to more than one strategic objective. Because if it does, your program may be driving the portfolio in more ways than the portfolio manager understood. And if you are in several strategic objectives, then you need to be looked at in a different vein because you have a higher value to the portfolio. Remember, portfolio, as I mentioned before, is a corporate view. They're looking at all of the projects and programs within the portfolio and to drive the value of that portfolio. Projects and programs are driven and aligned by strategy. So if I can't align your project or program to a strategy, then you shouldn't be in that portfolio. And many times we get put onto a project that is somebody's pet project, and it doesn't align to a strategic objective. I can tell you from experience, get off that project as soon as possible because it'll eventually die or it'll just keep on going and go nowhere. And somebody will eventually see it from the portfolio and kill that project. So wouldn't it be great to be resourced onto projects that you know align to strategic objectives instead of being on somebody's pet project? So strategy changes happen, and then the project portfolio manager also needs to look at what's going on by this changing of the strategy. Also, projects and programs, as I said before, are delayed or accelerated. So if that happens, then the value of the portfolio may change, and the portfolio manager needs to look at it. So you as a program manager need to understand where you are in the portfolio. If you do not, you need to go talk to the project portfolio manager and find out where you are and get an understanding. You need to communicate that to your team as well, because understanding where you are in the strategic value of the portfolio is a good thing, because then you understand where you're going and you understand how you're driving the portfolio. So how does it differ from a project? Well, projects are tactical, but I do know that in the latest PMBOK guide, 6th edition, they're saying that projects need to align to strategy, and I couldn't agree more. They absolutely need to align to strategy, because if they don't, then why are you doing it? So as a project, as I mentioned, you are tactical. You're delivering a tangible product or service, something that I know that's going to happen at the end. The projects are the here and now. You're doing it now to deliver into the strategy of the organization. And it must, like I keep on saying, it must align to a strategic objective. If it doesn't, then why is it being done? On the other hand, project portfolio management is looking at the future. They might be looking at 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, but they are driving to the future of the organization. So all of the projects and programs need to drive to that. So again, we're aligning the projects and programs to the objectives of the portfolio and that of executive leadership. Determine which strategic objectives increase the value. That's something that the project portfolio manager may look at. There might be 6 different strategic objectives that you're trying to maintain within that portfolio. But a good portfolio manager goes to the steering committee and tries to put those strategic objectives into the value that they drive. So if executive leadership says that strategy B needs to be number 1, then the portfolio manager is going to try to align as many projects and programs while keeping the risk and the cost down to that strategic objective B. So you as the project manager Do you know where you fit into PPM? If you don't, again, go talk to the project portfolio manager. Maybe your project is not in the portfolio. You need to find out why. It could be that it was overlooked. Project portfolio managers are not infallible. They do find things that they thought they had looked at in the total enterprise and it was forgotten about. Maybe your project isn't big enough to be in the portfolio, but it still needs to be done because it is meeting a strategic need. Maybe you're within a program of the portfolio, and that's why you're not showing up as an individual project. But understand where you fall into that PPM. If you're not in it, you need to understand why and understand if that is a good reason. And if you are in it, then understand which strategic objective you are driving. So, are you doing it and don't realize it? Are you part of a PMO? If you are part of a PMO, then I suspect you are doing a part of project portfolio management. You're not doing the entire thing, you're doing some. So for example, if you are doing budgets and you are looking at budgets for various projects and programs, then you are doing something that the project portfolio manager needs. He or she needs to understand what the budgets are doing on the different projects and programs, because as they go over budget or say under budget, then the value of the portfolio changes and that needs to be aligned again. So these are things that are constantly being done by the project portfolio manager. So if you can help them out, you are golden to them. So make sure you understand how you can help up the chain of command, which might be the project portfolio manager, which eventually goes to the executive leadership. So make yourself known to the portfolio manager because they would love to have this. Do you resource projects and programs? Are you doing it at the tactical level so that you put Joe on project A and Jane on project B? If so, then you again are a golden person to the project portfolio manager. Why? What happens is when the project is, let's say, is ready to go and it's being resourced, you find out that one of the key resources is on maternity leave or is on paternity leave or maybe has quit the company or maybe is on a medical leave. And the project portfolio manager doesn't know that. So the project portfolio manager thinks that the project is resourced effectively, but you actually know that it's not. So you, again, need to go to the project portfolio manager and let them know this, because what can happen is that the project portfolio manager deciding on the value of the portfolio may decide to delay a certain project and bring people from that project onto the new one that's getting ready to start. Or the project portfolio manager may just delay the start of this new project until a resource can be found. So those are things that the project portfolio manager is doing, and you as a resource manager can help them very much in making sure that projects are resourced effectively. Do you align projects and programs within a schedule? Now, the project portfolio manager is doing this at a very high level, and they're doing it for a different reason. They're doing it for value of the portfolio. You are doing it to make sure that different things are met at different times. So a deliverable from project A that needs to go to project B is done on time, or that you keep people informed if that deliverable is not going to be on time. Well, that can affect the portfolio as well. So discuss your scheduling and what you do in scheduling with the project portfolio manager, and maybe the two of you will align so that you know what the project portfolio manager needs, maybe on a monthly basis or even on a weekly basis, and you just provide a quick email to them. Are you working in strategy in your company? Then I know you are very needed by the project portfolio manager, because if you are working in day-to-day strategy with executive leadership, you know what's going on in their minds. You understand what they're thinking. You understand what they're looking at for the next 5 years. The project portfolio manager may not. You may know that down the line, when strategic objective B was number 1, you understand that it's going to be shifting to number 3, and that changes the value of the portfolio. So keeping the project portfolio manager aligned with what's going on with executive leadership helps to drive that. Now, the project portfolio manager should be talking to the steering committee, which is executive leadership, to understand where they're thinking too. But being able to triangulate everything helps the project portfolio manager stay in line. Are you a project manager that aligns with other projects? We just talked about that on schedules. You're doing a type of very low-level project portfolio management because you're understanding where things need to be and how things are aligned. Of course, the project portfolio manager is doing it at a higher level and is not looking necessarily at the deliverable point, but they may be looking at a deliverable that is highly critical to 2 or 3 different projects, or what your project has to deliver to do the value. So if you're aligned with another project to either deliver or receive deliverables, then you are doing a low-level type of project portfolio management. You might think about maybe talking to the project portfolio manager and understanding how you can take the next steps on doing more in project portfolio management. Are you a program manager that demonstrates benefits aligning to strategy? So in other words, when I said before, if you are a program manager and you think you align to more than one strategic objective, go and talk to the project portfolio manager. That means you understand strategy. You understand the strategic objectives of the organization. And maybe you need to help the project portfolio manager understand why your program fits in. Maybe the project portfolio manager wasn't looking at the strategic objective in the same way that you are. And you need to have a discussion on that. It doesn't mean that the project portfolio manager will change their mind, but they might, and they may listen and understand what is driving that, and they will look at how that affects the portfolio. Do you advocate understanding strategy to your team? Whether you're a portfolio manager, a program manager, a project manager, someone in the PMO, you must be able to articulate strategy and how it affects your team. So in other words, if I'm working on a strategic objective, you should be able to take your project or your program and tell the team how it aligns into the strategy. This will give your team confidence that they are working on something that is critical to the needs of the organization and will be met down the line. Do you push to understand value benefit of your project and program? If you do, then you are understanding a little bit about project portfolio management. If you understand the value and the benefit of your project or your program and how it aligns into the strategic objective, then you are starting to understand what project portfolio managers do. Remember, project portfolio managers do a lot of hard work, but what they're doing is like I say, is not rocket science. It is something that you can learn and do, but it does take a lot of time and effort and understanding of strategy. And not everybody wants to understand strategy, but no matter where you are in project management, you need to understand where you align with strategy. So if you don't understand the strategy, then create a business case. That's one of the things I tell people that work for me. If you don't understand something, take the template of the organization for business cases, or if they don't have one, go out and find a business case out on the internet and download it and see if you can write a business case for executive leadership for what you're thinking about. So where does PPM fit within your company? Well, it could be at many levels. It could be at an organizational level. It could be at a business unit level. It could be at the corporation level, and I'm sure there are many other levels. It's driven by culture as well. So for example, if your organization does OPEX and CAPEX, it might look at operational expenses more than it does at capital expenses. So maybe the portfolio is more driven on OPEX than it is on CAPEX, but CAPEX needs to be brought into it. Maybe your portfolio and your culture is driven on market. What can we bring to the market fastest and be the number one market leader? That has a different flavor than OPEX, CAPEX, although those things will be brought into it. But it'll be a different thing bringing into the different types of projects and programs. It's driven by size. Obviously, if you have a company that is 1 to 10 people, a person that's going to be doing project portfolio management for that company is going to be doing it as a side effort until the company grows. Now, if you're doing a Fortune 500 company, such as I did at NCR, you have a person dedicated, and I had a team that was dedicated. In fact, I had a little different situation in that I owned all the project managers and program managers and all the business analysts, so that was a great thing to have. But not all portfolio managers have that luxury. So does this make your PMO obsolete? Absolutely not. You are an integral part of the PPM because PMOs drive metrics up to executive leadership and to the project portfolio manager, and they drive it down to the projects and programs, or hopefully they are. You're an integral part, like I said, and maybe the project portfolio management is part of the PMO. That's a place that it can be. Sometimes they sit side by side, or sometimes the project portfolio management is done at a higher level than the PMO. That, again, depends on the culture of the organization. If you are a PMO and you don't have PPM in your organization, create a business case and you decide where it goes. If it goes in the PMO, if it goes lateral to the PMO, or if it goes one level above. So if you don't understand, again, as I was saying, create a business case. So what if you're a project and program manager? Are you in trouble if PPM is started? Well, my answer here is maybe. If you are on a project or program that aligns to the strategic objective, most likely you are all right. However, your project or program might be delayed start, or it might be accelerated depending on what the portfolio manager and the steering committee decide to do. Remember, the project portfolio manager doesn't make the decisions. The project portfolio manager makes recommendations into the steering committee, and the steering committee makes the final decision. So again, maybe if you are seeing that you're not aligned to strategy, then most likely your project or program may be pushed aside or maybe pushed into a different portfolio. Maybe you're in the wrong one, or maybe you need to be in a different business unit. It just depends. But if you don't align to any strategy with anywhere in the corporation, then beware. So what do you need to do for the business case? Remember, the business case for PPM is going to be for the executive leadership. So you're driving executive management to buy in. You have to drive to the bottom line. So you have to speak in their terms. You've got to speak in terms of ROI, return on investment. You've got to speak in terms of OPEX and CAPEX, operational expenses, capital expenses. You've got to talk in terms of profit and loss. You've got to talk in terms of the culture of the organization. So again, is it market driven? Is it OPEX, CAPEX? Is it being first to the market? Is it being a follower instead of first to the market? Again, understand that and drive it to the bottom line. Tell them, how does PPM drive strategy? Most executive management don't understand that their projects and programs need to drive the strategy. It's intuitive to most of us in project management, and it probably is something that they kind of understand, but you have to drive this home in the business case. So make the argument on paper. If you can make that argument on paper, you are golden. Most likely they will drive it. Remember to have an executive overview at the beginning of your business case that shows all of these items in a very concrete, succinct manner. Your executive overview should never be more than one page. So align projects and programs to drive that. Remember, I said that you have to align those to drive down the cost and increase the value and drive down risk. You need to articulate that in the business case, but here's some of the things that you can talk about, projects and programs that are above the line and those that are below the line. So you can tell executive leadership that they're effectively and correctly. Do you know that PwC did a survey of executive leadership about 5 years ago, and executive leadership said that about 50% of executive leadership said that they did not have the right people in their organizations to drive strategy. I think this is incorrect. I think they do have the right people. It's just that the projects and programs are not resourced effectively. So if you can do that and articulate that in your business case, you're golden. There's consistent reevaluation of the project portfolio. If depending on strategy, depending on where projects and programs are doing in their day-to-day operation. You're driving down risk and budget. If you see that a project is in trouble quickly, you can get resources out to it because you don't want it to drive the portfolio too much one way or the other. You're driving to corporate citizenship. So what is corporate citizenship? Corporate citizenship is where I have the trust up and down the chain of command that if I'm running ahead of schedule and I give back budget to the organization, that it will be used effectively for troubled projects or for bringing on something that's below the line. This creates trust in the sense that now if I'm a trouble project and I need extra budget, it is there because I have a budget that has been given back by those projects that are doing well. So again, we can either bring a project or program that's below the line, we can bring it on earlier, or we can help a project that is troubled because we now have extra budget at the portfolio level. So I love corporate citizenship because it creates a trust in the organization. There's more help when you are in trouble. I've already talked about that. And also, if you are in trouble, you may get put below the line. You may be stopped and put below the line. And until more budget comes in so that we can bring your project back on, we need more budget, and that is done through corporate citizenship. I can't emphasize that enough. So it allows for quick reaction. So if I see that something is happening in the portfolio, the project portfolio manager can drive to a quick resolution at what needs to be done and drive the message to the executive leadership and steering committee. Value and benefits are changing and shifting constantly. That needs to be articulated in the business case. Your risk and costs are maybe increasing if you have a lot of red projects. You need to bring those red projects back into an alignment with the portfolio. What does the project portfolio manager do? They do a lot, believe it or not. They're driving strategy in the organization. They're talking up the chain of command and down the chain of command. They're talking to executive leadership about which projects and programs are driving, which ones are the most valued in the portfolio, which ones need to be brought on to make sure that we get to where we need to be in 1, 2, 3 years down the line. You are the link between executive leadership and projects and programs and the PMO, if the PMO exists in the organization. Remember, I'm also the link as a project portfolio manager to the PMO to drive the metrics that I need up the chain of command to executive leadership and down the chain of command. You don't want to overemphasize the amount of metrics in the organization because people can get tired of them. So where are you in the process? You are somewhere in the process if you are doing projects or programs or if you are doing anything in strategy. So if you are involved in strategy at all, and if you are in projects and programs, you should be involved in strategy. So you are part of the project portfolio. Do you understand strategy? If you understand strategy, then you understand probably project portfolio management, even though you may not have understood what it was. You may not have understood that you have to link the projects and programs into it. So no matter where you are in the organization, you probably are driving strategy at some point. And if you're not, then you need to understand why is your job even there. If you are in a project or program and you're doing a strategic objective, then you are part of the strategy. I would love to bring some consulting into your organization. For a free 15-minute consultation, please call me today. My number is 336-210-3787. If you don't want to call me, please email me, wanda@pmpower.com, and mention this webinar. And I would be glad to put together some time for us to meet for about 15 minutes to discuss what I can do for your organization or how I can help your organization with just the 15-minute consultation. I would love to do this. Again, my email is wanda@pmpower.com. My phone is 336-210-3787.